I'll pay you 10 million, if you can even understand me." The table laughed. Crystal glasses chimed. She didn't. She finished arranging the flowers, then answered in flawless Arabic. Silence. Not because she impressed him, because she saw something he didn't. Her eyes flicked to the documents under his hand. Numbers that didn't belong, signatures that hesitated. He thought he was testing a waitress. He didn't realize she had just exposed a crack in his empire. And worse, she recognized the pattern. The same one that got her parents killed. 10 million for these flowers if you can serve me in Arabic. Karim Hassan's voice carried across the hushed restaurant, drawing the attention of his business associates. The young billionaire lounged in his chair at Lumiere Boston's most exclusive restaurant, his dark eyes fixed on the waitress who'd just finished arranging fresh orchids on their table. Jessica Taylor fought to keep her expression neutral. At 21, she dealt with her share of entitled customers, but this was different. The man's arrogance radiated from his perfectly tailored navy suit to the casual way he tossed out millions like spare change. "That won't be necessary, sir," she replied softly. Then switching flawlessly to Arabic, she added, "Though I appreciate the offer, I believe you have more pressing concerns than your table arrangements." The shock that registered on Karim's face was worth more than any tip. His business partners gaped as Jessica continued in perfect dialect-specific Arabic, pointing discreetly to the documents spread across their table. The discrepancy in these quarterly reports shows a significant unauthorized transfer from your Dubai holdings. Someone's been siphoning funds for at least 8 months. Karim's expression shifted from shock to suspicion in an instant. At 32, he hadn't built a global empire by trusting easily. He dismissed his associates with a sharp gesture and motioned for Jessica to stay. "Who are you?" he demanded once they were alone, switching back to English. "Just a waitress," Jessica replied, fighting the urge to flee. She'd spent 3 years carefully guarding her past, and one impulsive moment had just threatened everything. Waitresses don't typically speak classical Arabic with a Dubai accent, nor do they immediately recognize financial fraud from a glance at private documents. His eyes narrowed. "Sit down." It wasn't a request. Jessica sank into the chair across from him, feeling the weight of his assessment. Under the restaurant's amber lighting, his features were sharp but undeniably handsome. Strong jawline softened by full lips, intense eyes that missed nothing. I have meetings with the top financial analysts in the country. Yet none noticed what you just pointed out. He gathered the documents, tucking them into a leather portfolio. "Either you're incredibly lucky or incredibly dangerous." "I'm just observant," Jessica said. "Working here, you learned to read people tables and financial statements in Arabic." His tone was lighter, almost amused, but his gaze remained calculated. "What's your name, Jessica Taylor?" "Well, Jessica Taylor, it seems I owe you $10 million. She shook her head, blonde hair catching the light. "I don't want your money." Karim laughed a genuine sound that transformed his face. "Everyone wants my money. I'm not everyone." The words came out sharper than intended. Something shifted in his expression. For a brief moment, the arrogant billionaire vanished, replaced by a man genuinely intrigued. "No," he murmured. "You're certainly not." The restaurant's manager appeared hovering nervously. "Is everything satisfactory, Mr. Hassan?" "More than satisfactory," Karim replied, without taking his eyes off Jessica. "Your waitress is exceptional." Jessica felt heat rise to her cheeks. "If you'll excuse me, I have other tables." "Cancel them," Karim said to the manager. "Ms. Taylor will be joining me for dinner." The manager nodded eagerly, already calculating the tip from one of the world's richest men. "That's not necessary," Jessica protested. "I insist." Karim's tone was lighter, but carried unmistakable authority. "You've identified a potential crisis in my company. The least I can do is buy you dinner while we discuss it." Jessica hesitated. Everything about this screamed danger, not physical, but to the careful life she'd constructed. Yet something in his eyes held more than arrogance. There was intelligence intensity, and something else. Respect. "Fine." She relented. 1 hour. Kareem smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his features. 1 hour to start. As Jessica sat, he poured her a glass of water himself, a small gesture that contradicted his earlier entitled behavior. Now, he said, leaning forward, explain exactly what you saw in those documents. Jessica took a careful breath. She could provide just enough information to be helpful without revealing how she knew. The transfer signatures don't match your authorized patterns. They're close, but there's a slight hesitation in the final stroke, visible even in digital copies. Kareem's eyes widened slightly. Most forensic accountants wouldn't catch that. Like I said, I'm observant. She sipped her water, buying time. Where did you learn to speak Arabic so fluently? The question she'd been dreading. Jessica crafted her answer carefully. I had an interest in languages growing up. Arabic was particularly challenging. That doesn't explain the regional dialect or your understanding of financial documents. Jessica met his gaze steadily. Not everything requires an explanation, Mr. Hassan. Kareem, he corrected automatically, then smiled. Especially to a man who just tried to buy your attention with millions. A reluctant smile tugged at her lips. That was rather crude. I've been called worse. He studied her face. You're not intimidated by me. Should I be? Most people are. Most people want something from you, she countered. His expression flickered with surprise before he laughed again. Touché. For a moment, they sat in unexpectedly comfortable silence. Jessica felt the weight of her secrets pressing against her chest alongside something else. A dangerous flutter of interest in this complex man. Behind his arrogance was something wounded and genuine, visible in flashes when he thought she wasn't looking. You're right about the documents, he finally said, his voice lower. Someone close to me is stealing. The question is, what do you want for helping me discover who? Jessica's apartment felt especially small after the opulence of Lumiere. She kicked off her sensible work shoes and collapsed onto her worn couch, replaying the evening in her mind. After their initial confrontation, Kareem had been surprisingly thoughtful, asking genuine questions about her life in Boston, the parts she could share, listening attentively to her observations about his company's financial irregularities, and eventually sharing stories about growing up as the reluctant heir to his family's vast holdings. I never wanted any of it, he'd admitted after his second glass of wine. My father built an empire. I just wanted to build something of my own. She'd glimpsed vulnerability beneath his confident exterior, a man trapped by expectations fighting to prove himself worthy of his inheritance while simultaneously resenting its constraints. Now in the quiet of her apartment, Jessica pulled out the business card he'd pressed into her hand. Consider my offer, he'd said. The card was heavy minimalist, just his name and a private number embossed in gold. The offer, a consulting position to help identify the source of the fraud. The compensation enough to solve her financial struggles permanently. The risk exposure. Jessica crossed to the small safe hidden behind a loose baseboard, extracting a worn photograph. Herself at 14, standing between her parents outside the American embassy in Dubai. Her father's diplomatic smile, her mother's warm eyes. Both gone now. Victims of what authorities claimed was a terrorist attack. But what Jessica knew was a carefully orchestrated assassination. The official story. Jessica had died with them, a necessary fiction to keep her safe while investigations proceeded. But 3 years later, those investigations had mysteriously stopped. Her parents' former colleagues stopped returning calls. The promised justice never came. So Jessica Taylor, once Jasmine Thorne, daughter of diplomatic attaché Daniel Thorne, disappeared into a new identity using her mother's maiden name and the language skills acquired during her childhood abroad to survive. Her phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. My security team is running a background check on you. They won't find anything, will they? Kareem already testing her. Jessica's heart raced. Her false identity would hold up to standard scrutiny, but a billionaire's resources went beyond standard. She typed carefully. Depends on what you're looking for. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then honesty would be a good start. Jessica stared at the message. After 3 years of careful lies, the prospect of honesty was both terrifying and strangely liberating. She responded, "We all have secrets." His reply came instantly. "Some secrets get people killed." She froze, staring at the words. Was it a threat or a warning? Before she could decide, another message appeared. "Breakfast tomorrow. I'll send a car." Against her better judgment, she texted back, "I work the morning shift." "No, you don't. You've been reassigned as my personal consultant. 9 a.m. Jessica stared at her phone, equal parts irritated and intrigued by his presumption. She should refuse walk away before she risked everything she'd worked to protect. Instead, she found herself typing 9:30. I don't like being rushed. 3 dots, then 9:30. It is. Wear something professional. Apparently I have a new consultant to introduce to my executive team. Jessica dropped her phone like it had burned her. What was she doing? Getting involved with Karim Hassan meant visibility the exact opposite of what she needed. Yet, something about him, about the fraud she'd spotted, tugged at her. The familiar patterns matched techniques she'd seen in her father's files before his death. Could there be a connection? Sleep eluded her that night. At 8:45, she stood before her mirror, examining her transformation. The simple black dress was the most expensive thing she owned, a rare splurge from her first paycheck in Boston. With her hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail and minimal makeup highlighting her blue eyes, she looked composed, professional, and completely unlike the waitress Karim had met yesterday. Exactly at 9:15, her phone buzzed. Car waiting downstairs. The vehicle wasn't the flashy sports car she'd expected, but a discreet black sedan with tinted windows. The driver opened her door without a word. Inside sat Karim, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, and for a brief moment surprise registered on his face. "You clean up well," he said, his eyes traveling from her face to her sensible heels and back. "So do you," she replied dryly, though it was hardly necessary. His charcoal suit was impeccably tailored, making yesterday's attire seem almost casual in comparison. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began as the car pulled away from the curb, "about the signature discrepancies." Jessica nodded, grateful for the business-like approach. "The fraud is sophisticated. It's not just about money. It's about creating leverage. Leverage for what she hesitated. That's what we need to discover." Karim studied her face. "You know more than you're saying." It wasn't a question. Jessica met his gaze evenly. "I have theories. Based on what patterns? Experience." She paused. Instinct. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Not many waitresses have experience with complex financial fraud. I'm not many waitresses." A smile tugged at his lips. Clearly, he handed her a tablet. "This is everything we have on the discrepancies you identified. The transactions originated from our Dubai office, but were authorized here in Boston." Jessica scrolled through the files, careful not to react when she recognized a name buried in the transaction metadata. Amir Kadim, her father's former contact in the United Arab Emirates Finance Ministry, the same man who'd gone suspiciously silent after her parents' deaths. "You've found something," Karim said, watching her face. Jessica composed her features. "Just processing the information. You're a terrible liar." She looked up sharply. "And you're very presumptuous. I prefer efficient," he countered. "Jessica, whatever game you're playing, I need to know. My company is at stake." The car slowed as they approached a gleaming tower in downtown Boston. Hassan International's American headquarters. Jessica's chest tightened with anxiety. Walking into that building meant visibility record of her presence security cameras. "You're afraid," Karim observed quietly. Cautious, she corrected, of what Jessica stared through the window at the towering building. "Have you considered that whoever is stealing from you might be dangerous?" Karim's expression hardened. "Is that a concern or a warning both?" She met his eyes. "Your fraud has the hallmarks of an operation I've seen before. It doesn't end with missing money. It ends with leverage, blackmail, and sometimes worse." His brow furrowed. "You're going to have to trust me with more than cryptic warnings, Jessica." The car stopped. Outside, a security team waited to escort them into the building. Last chance, Kareem said quietly. Tell me who you really are. Jessica took a deep breath. 3 years of hiding of careful anonymity balanced against the possibility of finally understanding what had happened to her parents. I can help you find your thief, she said carefully. But my past stays my own. For now. Something shifted in Kareem's expression. Respect, perhaps, or acceptance of the challenge. For now, he agreed. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves. Jessica Taylor. He stepped from the car, then turned back with a surprisingly gentle smile, especially between two people who notice everything. As they walked into the building, Jessica felt the weight of eyes upon her. Security personnel, receptionists, executives. So much for staying invisible. But as Kareem's hand briefly touched the small of her back, guiding her toward the executive elevator, she felt something else too. A dangerous sense of possibility. The executive floor of Hassan International hummed with quiet efficiency. Florida-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Boston Harbor, while sleek glass offices housed serious-faced employees who paused their work to watch Kareem lead Jessica through the space. My team is waiting, Kareem murmured, guiding her toward a conference room where several people sat around a polished table. Remember, you're a financial security consultant I've brought in. Nothing more. Jessica nodded, squaring her shoulders. Who knows about the fraud? Only the 5 people in that room, my most trusted executives. His eyes met hers. And now you. The implication was clear. He was taking an enormous risk by trusting her. Conversation ceased as they entered. 5 pairs of eyes assessed Jessica with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. Good morning, Kareem said, his voice shifting to the authoritative tone of a CEO. This is Jessica Taylor, a financial security specialist who's identified some concerning patterns in our Dubai transactions. She'll be working directly with me to investigate. A silver-haired man at the far end of the table frowned. I wasn't aware we were bringing in outside consultants, Kareem. That's because I didn't tell you Uncle Kareem's tone was light but carried an edge. Miss Taylor's involvement is strictly confidential. Jessica catalogued the faces around the table as Kareem made introductions. Farid Hassan, Kareem's uncle, and the company's CFO. Alexandra Chen, legal counsel. Marcus Webb, operations director. Sophia Nazari, technology officer, and James Harrington, Kareem's personal security chief. Harrington's gaze was particularly penetrating. Jessica recognized the look of a man who made his living assessing threats. She was definitely on his list. Miss Taylor has unique expertise in identifying signature forgeries and transaction anomalies. Kareem continued smoothly. She'll need complete access to our financial systems. Surely our internal audit team, Farid began, has missed this for 8 months. Kareem finished. We need fresh eyes. And what are Miss Taylor's credentials? Alexandra Chen asked, her perfectly manicured fingers tapping against her tablet. Before Jessica could answer, Kareem cut in. Miss Taylor comes highly recommended by sources I trust implicitly. Her credentials are verified by me personally. The lie settled over the room. Jessica felt Harrington's gaze sharpen. Now Kareem continued. Sophia will set up secure access to our systems. James will arrange appropriate security clearance. The rest of you continue your normal operations. No one outside this room knows about the investigation. The meeting dispersed efficiently, though Jessica noticed Farid lingering, watching her with undisguised suspicion before finally exiting. Your uncle doesn't approve, she observed once they were alone. Farid disapproves of most things I do, Kareem replied, pressing a button that frosted the glass walls of the conference room. He believes I'm too impulsive. Hiring a waitress as a financial consultant would probably qualify as impulsive. A smile touched his lips. Probably. He activated a holographic display in the center of the table. This is what we know so far. Financial data materialized in the air between them. Transaction records, bank statements, authorization codes. Jessica stepped closer, immersing herself in the information. The pattern was sophisticated but familiar, similar to tactics she'd seen in her father's classified files. The transactions are structured to avoid detection, she noted, manipulating the display to highlight specific transfers. Small enough to stay under automatic audit thresholds, but collectively significant. Kareem moved to stand beside her, his presence warm and distracting. $67 million over 8 months. It's not just about the money, Jessica murmured, focusing on transaction destinations. These funds are being redistributed through a complex network of shell companies, ultimately consolidating into strategic investments. What kind of investments? Jessica expanded a cluster of data points. These companies are all acquiring minority stakes in firms that supply critical technology to your energy division. Someone's building leverage over your supply chain. Kareem's expression darkened. Our renewable energy division is unveiling a breakthrough solar technology next quarter. If someone controlled our suppliers, they could sabotage the launch, manipulate your stock, or force concessions, Jessica finished. This isn't simple theft, it's corporate espionage. Their eyes met across the holographic display, the blue light casting shadows across Kareem's features. For a moment, Jessica was struck by how natural this felt, working alongside him, their minds in surprising sync. "You've seen this before?" he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Jessica hesitated. Similar patterns. Where, before she could formulate a safe answer, the conference room door opened. James Harrington entered, his expression grim. "Sir, I need to speak with you privately." Kareem frowned. Whatever it is, Jessica can hear it. Harrington's jaw tightened. "It's about Ms. Taylor's background check." Jessica's heart sank. She should have known a standard fake identity wouldn't withstand scrutiny from a security chief with Kareem's resources. "Continue," Karim said, his voice carefully neutral. "Jessica Taylor appears to have existed for only 3 years. Before that, there's nothing. No education records, no employment history, no digital footprint." Harrington's eyes bored into Jessica. She's using a manufactured identity. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica kept her expression neutral, though her pulse raced. This moment had always been inevitable. She just hoped it wouldn't come so soon. "Is this true?" Kareem asked quietly. Jessica met his gaze. "Yes." "Care to explain why?" "Not particularly." A flicker of something. Amusement. Respect. Crossed his face before disappearing. "James, give us the room," Kareem ordered. "Sir, I strongly advise. The room, James." Harrington hesitated, then nodded curtly and left. Alone again. Kareem studied Jessica with newfound intensity. "I'm giving you one chance to tell me who you really are, before I have James dig deeper. And trust me, he will find whatever you're hiding." Jessica weighed her options. Complete honesty was impossible, but a version of the truth might buy her time. "My real name doesn't matter," she said carefully. "I created a new identity 3 years ago after my parents were killed." "Why?" "Because officially, I died with them." Kareem's eyes widened slightly. "And unofficially, I was hidden by people who believed the attack wasn't random, that I might be in danger." She swallowed. They were right. "What does this have to do with my company?" "Possibly nothing, possibly everything." Jessica met his gaze. "My father worked in international finance. He uncovered patterns of fraud similar to what's happening in your company. 2 weeks later, he and my mother were dead." Kareem was silent for a long moment. "You believe whoever killed your parents is now targeting my company. I believe it's a possibility worth investigating." Jessica answered carefully. "The methods are similar. Certain names in your transaction records overlap with my father's case, which is why you are working as a waitress in a restaurant frequently used for my business meetings." Kareem concluded, his voice hardening. "You've been watching me." "Not you specifically," Jessica corrected. "I was following leads. Your company appeared in my research." Anger flashed in Kareem's eyes. "So last night, identifying the fraud, that was your angle all along?" No, Jessica's denial was immediate and sincere. "I recognized the fraud because I've studied similar patterns, but I never planned to reveal myself. That was." She hesitated, impulsive. His expression remained guarded. "Why should I believe anything you say?" "You shouldn't," Jessica admitted. but I can help you find who's stealing from you. And in return, maybe you can help me understand what happened to my parents." Kareem studied her face, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "If I discover you're manipulating me or withholding critical information about my company, our arrangement ends immediately. Understood?" Jessica nodded. "Understood. Good." He turned back to the financial display. "Then let's find our thief." As they resumed work, Jessica felt his periodic glances assessing, recalculating. The easy rapport from earlier had vanished, replaced by wary cooperation. Still, as they identified additional fraudulent transactions, their natural rhythm returned. By mid-afternoon, they'd compiled a list of suspicious activities and potential suspects. "Whoever's doing this has intimate knowledge of our financial systems," Kareem observed. "It has to be someone internal." Jessica nodded, reviewing their findings. "Someone with access to your signature authorization protocols and deep understanding of your audit procedures. That narrows it to about 12 people, including everyone in this morning's meeting." Their eyes met across the table. The implication hung between them. One of Kareem's most trusted executives was likely behind the fraud. "We need to be careful how we proceed," Kareem said quietly. "If we're right, we're dealing with someone both sophisticated and desperate." "Desperate people make mistakes," Jessica replied. "We just need to force one." Kareem's phone buzzed. He checked the message, his expression darkening. "My uncle's assistant just accessed the files we've been reviewing." "Is that unusual, Very?" Fed keeps his assistant strictly away from sensitive financial matters. Kareem's eyes met hers. "It seems we may have our first lead." Before Jessica could respond, the conference room door burst open. James Harrington entered, his face grim. "Sir, there's something you need to see now." Kareem frowned. "What is it?" Harrington glanced at Jessica, hesitating. "We've identified Miss Taylor's real identity." He placed a tablet on the table, sliding it toward Kareem. "And you won't believe who she really is." Kareem stared at the tablet, his expression shifting from shock to disbelief. Jessica's heart hammered in her chest as she watched emotions play across his face. Confusion, anger, and something more complex. "Is this verified?" He finally asked, his voice unnaturally steady. Harrington nodded. "Multiple sources facial recognition confirmation. There's no mistake." Kareem looked up at Jessica, his eyes now cold. Jasmine Thorne. The sound of her real name sent a chill through her body. 3 years since anyone had spoken it aloud. Daughter of Daniel Thorne. American diplomatic attachés to the UAE. Kareem's voice was flat. Officially declared dead in a terrorist bombing 3 years ago alongside her parents. Jessica remained still, calculating her options. Denial was pointless. "Yes. And what's your interest in my company, Miss Thorne, beyond solving your parents' murder?" "That's my only interest," she replied evenly. "The fraud pattern in your company matches techniques my father was investigating before he died. And you didn't think this relevant information to share. I shared what was necessary." Kareem's laugh was harsh. "Necessary? You infiltrated my life under false pretenses." "I didn't infiltrate anything," Jessica countered. "I was working at a restaurant. You're the one who insisted I join your investigation after you deliberately revealed your Arabic skills and knowledge of the documents." "That was impulsive," she admitted. "So you said." His eyes narrowed. "What else haven't you told me?" Jessica hesitated. Partial truths had only complicated things. Perhaps honesty was her only remaining option. "My father identified a pattern of financial fraud targeting multinational corporations with connections to Middle Eastern energy projects. The fraud wasn't about money. It was about control, strategic leverage." She took a deep breath. 2 days before he was killed, he mentioned a company called Nexus Ventures, a subsidiary of Hassan International. Kareem's expression shifted. "Nexus is our renewable energy initiative." "I know. My father believed someone was systematically infiltrating companies involved in next-generation energy development. For what purpose? Control of emerging technologies, political influence. My father was still putting the pieces together when he was killed. Jessica met Kareem's eyes. The bombing wasn't terrorism. It was an assassination. The room fell silent. Harrington watched them both, his hand resting near his concealed weapon. Finally, Kareem spoke. "James, leave us, sir." Given the circumstances now. Reluctantly, Harrington exited, closing the door behind him. Kareem's voice was dangerously quiet. "You believe my company is connected to your parents' murder. I believe whoever is stealing from you may be connected to their deaths." Jessica clarified. "The methods are too similar to be coincidental, and you didn't think to mention this earlier. Would you have believed me? A waitress claiming international conspiracy and murder." Kareem ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration evident. "I trusted you with my company's security." "And I haven't betrayed that trust," Jessica replied. "Everything I've told you about the fraud is true, but not everything about yourself." "No." She met his gaze steadily. "Would you have done differently in my position?" Something shifted in his expression, a reluctant acknowledgement. He turned away, staring out at the Boston skyline. "My father built this company from nothing," he said quietly. "Hassan International operates in 37 countries. We employ over 80,000 people." He turned back to Faisir. "If what you're suggesting is true, if someone inside my organization is not only committing fraud, but was involved in murdering American diplomats, the implications are catastrophic." I know Kareem studied her face. "Why reveal yourself now?" "You could have gathered information anonymously." "Because I'm tired of hiding," Jessica admitted. 3 years of looking over my shoulder, afraid to use my real name, unable to properly mourn my parents. When I saw those documents on your table, she shook her head. It was the first real lead I've had. Something in Kareem's expression softened. "What exactly did your father discover? I don't know specifics." "He was careful, especially toward the end." Jessica hesitated, but he trusted someone named Amir Kadim at the UAE Ministry of Finance. After my parents died, Kadim went silent. Kareem's head snapped up. "Amir Kadim is my godfather. He and my father were business partners before my father's death." Jessica felt a chill run through her. "When did your father die? 2 years ago?" "Heart attack." Kareem's eyes narrowed. "At least that's the official story." The implication hung between them. Before Jessica could respond, Kareem's phone buzzed with an urgent message. "Someone's accessing our secure servers," he said, scanning the alert, "using my uncle's credentials." From where the building's parking garage. Kareem was already moving toward the door. Fed should be in meetings across town. Jessica followed him to the executive elevator. It could be a trap. Almost certainly, he agreed, pressing the button for the parking level. But it's also our best chance to catch whoever's behind this. The elevator descended swiftly. Jessica felt adrenaline coursing through her veins, both fear and a strange exhilaration. After 3 years of dead ends, she might finally get answers. "Stay behind me," Kareem instructed as the doors opened to the dimly lit garage. They moved cautiously between rows of luxury vehicles. Security cameras should have covered every angle, but Jessica noticed several had been repositioned. "Someone's been planning this," she whispered. Kareem nodded, his body tense as they approached his reserved parking space. His sleek black Bentley sat alone in the VIP section there. Jessica pointed to a figure hunched beside the car, barely visible in the shadows. "They're placing something under your vehicle." Before Kareem could respond, the figure straightened, revealing Fared's assistant, a young man named Rashid. His eyes widened in shock upon seeing them. Mr. Hassan Rashid stammered. "I was just checking." "Checking what, Rashid?" Kareem's voice was deadly calm. "Why are you accessing secure servers from the garage? And why are you near my car?" The young man's expression shifted from surprise to calculated determination. "You shouldn't have come down here, Mr. Hassan." His hand moved toward his jacket. "Gun!" Jessica shouted, shoving Kareem sideways as Rashid drew a weapon. The first shot missed, ricocheting off a concrete pillar. Kareem pulled Jessica behind a nearby SUV as 2 more shots rang out. "Security will have heard that," Kareem whispered, pulling out his phone. Don't count on it, Jessica replied grimly. The cameras are compromised. Sound might be too. Rashid's voice echoed through the garage. You should have stayed out of it, Mr. Hassan. You were supposed to be too distracted by your new company to notice the transactions. Who are you working for? Karim called back. Is it my Uncle Rashid? Laughed. A cold, unpleasant sound. Fed. He's a fool who sees only what he wants to see. No, my employer is much more visionary. A fourth shot shattered the SUV's window above them. Glass rained down as they crawled toward the next vehicle. We need to split up, Jessica whispered. Draw his fire while I circle around. Absolutely not, Karim hissed. You don't have a weapon. Neither do you, she pointed out. But I have training. Karim's eyebrows rose in surprise. But before he could respond, footsteps approached their position. Come out now, mister. Hassan Rashid called closer now. Make this easy for all of us. Jessica caught Karim's eye mouth. Thing, trust me, before slipping away behind the row of cars. Karim's jaw tightened, but he nodded. What's the end game, Rashid? Karim called, drawing the man's attention. 67 million isn't enough to justify murder. This was never about money, Rashid replied, moving closer to Karim's position. It's about power control of the future. As Rashid's attention fixed on locating Karim, Jessica moved silently through the shadows circling behind their attacker. Years of self-defense training after her parents' death had prepared her for this moment. Rashid raised his gun, spotting Karim's reflection in a car window. Your father understood what was at stake. He made the right choice. You should have done the same. The mention of his father made Karim falter. What about my father? Rashid smiled coldly. Who do you think introduced us to Amir Kadim? Your father knew the game. He played it well. In that moment of distraction, Jessica launched herself at Rashid, striking his wrist with precision. The gun clattered across the concrete floor as they grappled. Rashid was stronger, but Jessica was faster, using his momentum against him. Karim rushed forward, retrieving the fallen weapon as Jessica forced Rashid to the ground, twisting his arm behind his back. Impressive, Karim remarked, training the gun on Rashid. Diplomatic security training. Jessica explained, breathless from exertion. After what happened to my parents, I made sure I could protect myself. Rashid laughed beneath her, despite his painful position. You think this ends with me? We're everywhere in every major energy company, planning for decades. Who's we? Karim demanded. Before Rashid could answer, the garage echoed with the sound of approaching vehicles. Security had finally responded. This isn't over, Rashid whispered. The consortium doesn't leave loose ends. The consortium, Jessica repeated. What consortium? But Rashid had fallen silent, a strange smile playing on his lips as security officers surrounded them. As Harrington led the team securing Rashid, Karim pulled Jessica aside. Are you all right? She nodded, though her hands trembled with leftover adrenaline. You considering I nearly got shot in my own garage surprisingly well. His eyes searched her face. That was impressive fighting. Like I said, I've learned to protect myself. Something shifted in Karim's expression. Respect, admiration, and something deeper. It seems there's a lot more to Jessica Taylor, or rather, Jasmine Thorne, than meets the eye. For the first time that day, Jessica smiled. I could say the same about you. Harrington approached, his expression grave. Sir Rashid isn't talking, but we found this on him. He handed Karim a small electronic device. It was meant for your car tracking and listening capabilities, and this was in his pocket. He produced a business card, blank, except for a simple geometric symbol embossed in silver. Jessica's breath caught. I've seen that before. In my father's files, Karim's eyes met hers. The shared realization passing between them. Whatever conspiracy had killed her parents now threatened him, and possibly much more. We need a secure location, Karim decided. Somewhere not connected to Hassan International. I know a place Jessica offered. As they left the garage under heavy security, Jessica felt Karim's hand briefly touch hers, a gesture of solidarity that sent an unexpected warmth through her. Amidst danger and uncertainty, something else was growing between them, something neither had anticipated, something that made her both stronger and more vulnerable than she'd been in years. Jessica's secure location turned out to be a modest brownstone in Cambridge, owned by her father's former colleague who now taught at MIT. Professor Edwards had left for a sabbatical in Europe, entrusting Jessica with the keys to a home he rarely used. "My father's friend helped me disappear after the bombing," she explained as they entered the book-lined living room. "He never asked questions, just provided resources when I needed them." Karim glanced around the academic's home. Persian rugs over hardwood floors, walls of books, and not a single personal photograph. Does he know who you really are? One of the few who does. Jessica secured the door behind them, checking window locks with practiced efficiency. "He worked with my father at the embassy. After the attack, he helped me establish my new identity before taking the position at MIT. Harrington had arranged their covert exit from Hassan Tower using decoy vehicles to ensure they weren't followed. Only he knew their location." Rashid remained in custody, still refusing to speak. "You should change," Jessica said, noticing the small tear in Karim's suit from their garage confrontation. "Professor Edwards keeps guest clothes in the spare room, second door on the left." When Karim returned in borrowed jeans and a Harvard sweatshirt, Jessica had transformed the dining table into an investigation hub. Her laptop displayed financial records alongside scanned pages from a weathered journal. "My father's notes," she explained, seeing Karim's questioning look. "I memorized his encryption method when I was 16. He thought I was just showing off. But you were preparing—" Karim finished understanding in his eyes. He joined her at the table. "What have you found connections?" Jessica pointed to names highlighted across various documents. "Your godfather, Amir Kadim, my father's former supervisor at the State Department, 3 executives at major energy companies, and this symbol," she indicated the geometric design from Rashid's card, appearing in communications between them. "The consortium," Karim murmured. "Whatever that is. I think it's an organization dedicated to controlling next-generation energy technologies." Jessica pulled up another document. "My father traced unusual investment patterns across multiple countries. Shell companies acquiring minority stakes in key suppliers' research facilities, experiencing mysterious setbacks, promising scientists offered irresistible positions that effectively sidelined their work. Suppressing innovation," Karim realized. But why? There's more money in advancement than suppression. Unless you're already dominant in current energy markets, Jessica's eyes met his. Who benefits most if renewable energy development stalls? If dependency on existing resources continues? Karim's expression darkened with understanding. "Traditional energy powers nations whose economies rely on oil exports." "Exactly." Jessica enlarged a complex chart from her father's notes. "The consortium appears to be a coalition of interests from both private industry and state actors working to ensure energy transitions happen on their timeline and under their control. And my company's breakthrough solar technology threatens that timeline," Karim concluded. "But what was my father's involvement?" Rashid implied he was working with them. Jessica hesitated. "I don't have concrete evidence, just patterns." "Show me." Karim's voice was quiet but insistent. She pulled up financial records from Hassan International dating back 3 years. "Your father began restructuring Nexus Ventures shortly before his death. Key researchers reassigned patents, quietly shelved promising projects. Mysteriously underfunded." Karim studied the documents, his expression unreadable. "These decisions have my father's signature, his authorization codes." "Yes." Jessica watched him carefully, "but after his death, many of those decisions were reversed by you. I thought he'd made strategic errors." Karim's voice was tight with emotion. "I never considered that he might have been compromised." Jessica finished, gently pressured perhaps. Karim stood abruptly, pacing the room. "My father built Hassan International from nothing. His reputation was everything to him. If the consortium approached him, they might have threatened that reputation," Jessica suggested. "Or your family's safety." "My father wasn't a coward," Kareem snapped, then immediately regretted his harshness. I apologize. This isn't easy to consider. I understand. Jessica's voice softened. My father kept secrets too, things he thought would protect me. Their eyes met across the room. Two people whose lives had been shaped by their father's choices and secrets. Something shifted in that moment, a barrier dissolving between them. Kareem returned to the table, his composure recovered. What about your father's death? How does it connect? Jessica pulled up another file. 3 weeks before the bombing, my father met with Amir Kadim in Dubai. The next day, he began encrypting these notes. She pointed to a specific entry. This is where he first mentions H International alongside the word compromised. And 2 weeks later, he was dead. Kareem's voice was somber. Along with your mother, and supposedly you. A message to anyone else investigating the consortium, Jessica said quietly. Very effective. Kareem studied her face, the quiet strength, the determination that had sustained her through years of hiding and loss. In the soft lamplight with her guard, finely lowered Jasmine Thorne was both more vulnerable and more formidable than Jessica Taylor had ever been. You were 19, he realized, just a teenager when you lost everything. Jessica looked away. I had resources others don't. Professor Edwards, my father's emergency protocols. Still, Kareem reached across the table, his hand covering hers. You've carried this alone for 3 years. The simple touch, warm, steady, unexpected, broke something in Jessica. 3 years of careful control faltered. She withdrew her hand, blinking back sudden tears. I should check the security system, she said, rising quickly. Kareem let her go, understanding her need for privacy. While she composed herself, he continued examining the evidence they'd compiled. One name appeared repeatedly in the most recent transactions. Elias Vaughan, CEO of a British energy conglomerate with significant Middle Eastern investments. When Jessica returned, her composure restored, Kareem pointed to Vaughan's name. He's hosting a charity gala tomorrow night in Boston. Every major energy company will have representatives there, including Hassan International. I received a personal invitation, Kareem confirmed, which I had declined due to the financial irregularities we were investigating. But now we'll attend, Jessica concluded, understanding his implication. Kareem nodded. If the consortium is real, Vaughan's event will have members present. We might identify connections, perhaps even whoever Rashid reports to. It's dangerous. Jessica pointed out, if they realize what we know. They already tried to kill me today, Kareem reminded her. And they believe they succeeded in killing you 3 years ago. Our greatest advantage is that half of us is supposedly dead. A reluctant smile touched Jessica's lips when you put it that way. Besides, Kareem added, we make a convincing couple, the billionaire and his intriguing new companion. Gossip-worthy but not suspicious couple. Jessica raised an eyebrow. For appearance's sake, he clarified, though his eyes held something more than professional interest. I'm known for impulsive romantic entanglements. How convenient, she replied dryly, though a flush of warmth colored her cheeks. As night fell, they continued working, piecing together fragments of a conspiracy spanning continents. Shared danger had accelerated their connection, creating an intimacy neither had expected. They worked in natural synchronization, anticipating each other's thoughts, building on each other's insights. Around midnight, Jessica finally succumbed to exhaustion, falling asleep at the table. Kareem carefully lifted her surprisingly light in his arms and carried her to the guest bedroom. As he laid her on the bed, she stirred briefly. Kareem, she murmured, half asleep. Rest, he said softly. You're safe. Her hand caught his as he turned to leave. Stay, she whispered. Just stay. He hesitated only briefly before stretching out beside her above the covers, maintaining a respectful distance. Yet as she drifted back to sleep, Jessica instinctively moved closer, seeking warmth and comfort. In the darkness of a stranger's guest room, surrounded by evidence of a conspiracy that had shaped both their lives, an unexpected peace settled over them. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, but tonight Neither was alone with their secrets anymore. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains when Jessica awoke. For a moment, disorientation gripped her. Then memory returned. The confrontation in the garage, the escape to Professor Edward's home, the evidence they'd compiled, and Kareem who had stayed beside her through the night. The space next to her was empty now, the cover slightly disturbed. She found him in the kitchen, freshly showered and wearing another set of borrowed clothes, preparing coffee with focused precision. "You know how to make coffee," she observed, surprising herself with the domesticity of the comment. Kareem looked up, a smile warming his features. Contrary to popular belief, billionaires occasionally perform basic tasks. Occasionally, she echoed, accepting the cup he offered, their fingers brushed, and neither pulled away immediately. "I've been thinking," Kareem said after a moment, "about what happens after we identify the consortium members." Just as Jessica replied simply, "Exposure, accountability for my parents' deaths." Kareem studied her face. And then the question caught her off guard. She had spent 3 years focused solely on finding answers, with no thought to what came after. "I don't know," she admitted. "Would you reclaim your identity? Become Jasmine Thorne again?" Jessica considered this. Jasmine died with her parents. Her life, her plans, they're gone. She met his gaze. But perhaps it's time for Jessica Taylor to be more than just a cover identity. Something shifted in Kareem's expression. Hope, possibility. Before he could respond, his secure phone buzzed with an incoming message from Harrington. "Rashid is talking," Kareem reported after reading the message. Partially, at least, he's confirmed the consortium exists, but claims he's only a minor player. He's named Elias Vaughn as his primary contact. Convenient timing with the gala tonight. Indeed, Kareem sat down his coffee. Harrington's arranged security and transportation and appropriate attire for both of us. Jessica raised an eyebrow. "Both of us. You didn't think I'd attend a potentially deadly charity gala without my financial security consultant, did you?" His tone was light, but his eyes held genuine respect. "We're partners in this now, Jessica. Or should I call you Jasmine?" "Jessica," she said firmly. Jasmine was a diplomat's sheltered daughter. "Jessica is stronger?" Kareem nodded, understanding the distinction. "Then as partners, Jessica, we have work to do. Partners." The word settled between them, carrying meaning beyond their immediate investigation. As they prepared for the evening ahead, Jessica felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years. Not just purpose, but possibility, a future beyond revenge. And perhaps, though she hardly dared acknowledge it, beyond solitude. The Vaughn Foundation Gala transformed Boston's historic Franklin Institute into a glittering showcase of wealth and influence. Crystalline chandeliers cast golden light over marble floors where the powerful gathered draped in designer formal wear and calculating ambition. When Kareem and Jessica arrived, he in an impeccably tailored tuxedo, she in a midnight blue gown Harrington had somehow procured in exactly her size, heads turned throughout the grand hall. Kareem Hassan was news enough. The stunning unknown woman on his arm was an irresistible mystery. "Everyone's watching," Jessica murmured acutely, aware of the eyes upon them. "Let them," Kareem replied, his hand warm against the small of her back. "It's the perfect cover." Jessica had spent years avoiding attention, perfecting the art of invisibility. Now she forced herself to embrace visibility, meeting curious gazes with poised confidence. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo, her makeup subtle but effective. She looked nothing like the waitress from Lumiere or the consultant from Hassan Tower. Kareem. A silver-haired man approached, champagne in hand. "I thought you weren't attending tonight. Plans change, Elias." Kareem's smile was perfectly calibrated, warm enough for friendship, reserved enough for business. "May I introduce Jessica Taylor, my financial security consultant, Elias Vaughn." Their primary suspect took Jessica's offered hand. His grip firm, but his eyes calculating. "Consultant? How interesting. In what capacity, Ms.?" "Taylor has a unique talent for identifying irregularities," Kareem replied smoothly. Something flickered in Van's expression. So brief Jessica might have missed it had she not been watching for exactly such a reaction. "Fascinating," he said. "Perhaps you could lend your expertise to my foundation sometime." "Perhaps," Jessica replied with a practiced smile. "Your work and energy investment is particularly interesting." Van's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're familiar with my portfolio? I make it my business to understand the landscape," she answered, "especially regarding innovative technologies." The conversation balanced on a knife's edge, polite phrases carrying weighted implications. Van excused himself moments later, though Jessica noticed him speaking into his watch as he walked away. "He's alerting others," she murmured to Kareem. "We've rattled him." "Good." Kareem guided her toward the center of the room. "Let's identify who responds." They circulated through the gala, engaging in seemingly casual conversations while noting reactions to specific topics. Hassan International's renewable energy division, recent shifts in global energy markets, technological innovations. Through it all, Kareem kept Jessica close, their performance as a couple requiring little actual pretense. "Your uncle at 2 o'clock?" Jessica whispered with Air Kadeem. Kareem tensed beside her. His godfather and his uncle stood in deep conversation, both men repeatedly glancing in their direction. "They're surprised to see us together," Kareem observed. "Especially you." "Kadeem would recognize me if he looked closely." Jessica acknowledged. "He knew my father well." "Then let's give him something else to focus on." Without warning, Kareem drew her into a secluded alcove beneath an ornate staircase, his body shielding her from direct view. "What are you doing?" she asked, though the sudden proximity made her pulse quicken, creating a distraction. His voice lowered, his hand gently cupping her face. "May I?" The question hung between them, laden with meaning beyond their cover. Jessica nodded, barely perceptible. Kareem leaned forward, his lips meeting hers in what began as a calculated display but quickly transformed into something neither had anticipated. The kiss deepened Jessica's hands instinctively, moving to his shoulders as his arm encircled her waist, drawing her closer. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, the pretense had vanished. Something real had emerged, something neither had planned for. "That should give them something to discuss besides your identity," Kareem murmured, though his eyes revealed the kiss had affected him as deeply as it had her. Jessica needed a moment to regain her composure. "We should return to the main floor." As they emerged from the alcove, Jessica noticed Vaughn watching them with renewed interest. He was speaking to another man distinguished in his 60s, with military posture and cold eyes. "The man with Vaughn," she whispered. "I recognize him from my father's files." Malcolm Reed, former intelligence officer, now energy security consultant. "He's on my board of directors," Kareem revealed grimly. "Appointed during my father's final year." The pieces were aligning with disturbing clarity. As they continued their circuit of the room, Jessica compiled a mental list of attendees who showed subtle recognition when seeing her with Kareem. At least 7 individuals connected to major energy companies or government regulatory agencies. "The consortium isn't just real," she whispered. "It's powerful, embedded throughout the industry." "And my company," Kareem added, his expression hardening as he noted his uncle's continued surveillance. As the evening progressed, Vaughn took the podium to announce a major new initiative, a coalition of energy companies dedicated to responsible transition to renewable resources. The crowd applauded as he introduced partner CEOs, including representatives from Russian, Saudi, and American energy giants. "That's their public face," Kareem murmured, controlling the pace of innovation under the guise of responsibility. While sabotaging true breakthroughs behind the scenes, Jessica added, "Like your solar technology." As they listened to Vaughn's carefully crafted speech, Jessica noticed Malcolm Reed approaching them, his path indirect but purposeful. "Reed is coming. Be prepared." Before Reed could reach them, Kareem's phone vibrated with an urgent message from Harrington. "Leave now." Rashid found dead in custody. Reed identified as handler. Evidence uploaded to secure server. Kareem's grip tightened on Jessica's arm. "We need to go immediately." They began moving toward a side exit, maintaining casual appearances while increasing their pace. Behind them, Reed changed course to intercept them. "Mr. Hassan," a voice called. Jessica turned to see Air Kadim approaching, his expression unreadable. A moment before you depart, trapped between Reed and Kadim, Kareem made a swift decision, steering Jessica toward his godfather. "Of course, Uncle Amir." Kadim's eyes widened slightly at Jessica, recognition dawning in his expression. Before he could speak, Kareem continued smoothly. "We were just discussing my father's legacy, how he would feel about Hassan International's future." "Your father was a practical man," Kadim replied carefully, his gaze shifting between them. "He understood necessary compromises." "Did those compromises include the murder of American diplomats?" Jessica asked quietly. Kadim's face palled. "You don't understand the complexities." "I understand perfectly." Kareem interrupted, his voice cold. "You betrayed my father's trust, used his company for your consortium's purposes. Your father knew exactly what he was involved in." Kadim hissed, dropping all pretense. "He protected you by participating. They would have killed you otherwise." The revelation hit Kareem like a physical blow. My father was protecting me. As Daniel Thorne tried to protect his daughter, Kadim said, glancing at Jessica unsuccessfully. Jessica's hand found Kareem studying him. "My father refused to be compromised. He chose integrity and died for it." Kadim noted coldly. "As you both will, if you pursue this further, the consortium doesn't allow interference." "Neither do I." Kareem replied, his composure returning. "Especially in my family's company." Kadim's expression hardened. "You've made your choice then?" "Yes," Kareem confirmed. "And unlike my father, I choose truth over compromise." As they turned to leave, Kadim called after them. "Malcolm knows you've identified him. You won't make it out of the building." "We already have everything we need," Jessica replied calmly. "Harrington has been collecting evidence all evening, identifying consortium members, securing testimonies." "It's over," Uncle Amir Kareem added. "The consortium's activities within Hassan International end tonight." They left Kadim standing speechless as they made their way to the exit where Harrington's security team waited. As they slipped into the armored vehicle, Jessica caught sight of Reed frantically speaking into his phone, watching their departure with barely contained fury. "We've stirred the hornet's nest," she observed as the car pulled away. "Good." Kareem's voice was firm. "Harrington has coordinated with federal authorities. The evidence is overwhelming. Financial fraud conspiracy connection to your parents' murder. The consortium won't survive exposure." Jessica felt the weight of 3 years of searching, hiding and fighting begin to lift. "It's really ending." "Not ending," Kareem corrected gently. "Beginning." Their eyes met in the dim light of the car. So much had changed in 3 days. From their first confrontation at Lumiere to this moment of shared victory and possibility. "What happens now?" Jessica asked softly. "Justice," Kareem replied. "For your parents, for my father, who made the wrong choice for the right reasons." He took her hand, and then, whatever we choose, we the word carried questions, hopes, uncertainties. "If you want," he amended suddenly, less confident than the billionaire CEO who commanded rooms with his presence. "I understand if you need to reclaim your life, your identity." "Jessica Taylor is my identity now," she interrupted. "Jasmine died 3 years ago, but Jessica, she's just discovering who she can be." Kareem's smile transformed his face, erasing the hardness of recent revelations. "I'd like to know her better." "I think that can be arranged," Jessica replied, returning his smile. 6 months later, the fallout from the consortium's exposure continued to reverberate through global energy markets. Elias Vaughan faced federal charges. Malcolm Reed had fled the country, but was being pursued by international authorities. Amir Kadim had turned state's witness, providing testimony that finally brought justice for Daniel and Eleanor Thorne. Within Hassan International, Kareem had orchestrated a complete restructuring, removing all consortium influences. The company's breakthrough solar technology was proceeding on schedule, promising to transform energy access in developing nations. Jessica still legally, Jessica Taylor had established a foundation dedicated to transparent energy innovation, funded by the substantial reward from the federal investigation. The Foundation's first initiative supported young scientists whose research had previously been suppressed by consortium interference. In her private office overlooking Boston Harbor, she reviewed applications for the Foundation's scholarship program. A knock at her door revealed Kareem looking more relaxed than he had in their early days together. "Ready for dinner?" he asked, crossing to place a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Almost." She signed the final approval for a promising young engineer's funding. Just changing lives one grant at a time. "Like father, like daughter," Kareem observed warmly. "He would be proud." Jessica smiled, the mention of her father no longer bringing only pain. "I think so." As they left her office, hand in hand, Jessica reflected on their unlikely journey. From a waitress and an arrogant billionaire to partners in exposing a global conspiracy. From strangers to lovers, from lost souls to found family. The path ahead still held challenges. The consortium, though weakened, had roots in many institutions. Their fight for transparency would continue, but now neither fought alone. "What are you thinking?" Kareem asked as they stepped into the elevator. Jessica squeezed his hand. "That some flowers are worth $10 million after all." His laugh echoed in the small space as he pulled her close. "The best investment I ever made." In the reflected glass of the elevator doors, Jessica caught a glimpse of them together. No longer the careful Jessica Taylor or the controlled Kareem Hassan, but simply themselves. Two people who had found each other through loss and deception and built something true from the ruins. Though technically, she added with a smile, "You still owe me the money. I have a lifetime to pay it back," he replied, his eyes holding promises beyond currency. "If you'll let me." As the elevator descended, Jessica leaned into him, her answer clear without words. The past could not be changed, but the future, their future, was theirs to write. Farid Hassan eventually faced charges for his passive complicity in the consortium's activities. Though evidence suggested he had been manipulated rather than actively participating, he reached out to Kareem for reconciliation from prison, beginning the slow process of rebuilding family trust. The Professor Edwards returned from sabbatical to find his brownstone unchanged, except for a generous donation to his research department and a wedding invitation waiting in his mailbox. Jessica Taylor and Kareem Hassan requested his presence as the closest thing to family she had left. And on quiet evenings when nightmares of the past occasionally resurfaced, they held each other. Two survivors who had turned shared trauma into shared strength. Not defined by what they had lost, but by what they had found in themselves and in each other. In the end, it wasn't millions or power, or even justice that healed them. It was the simple truth that sometimes the most precious things come disguised as something else entirely. A waitress with unexpected skills, an arrogant billionaire with a wounded heart, or an impulsive moment that changes everything.